All right, here we go. Today is Lysander Spooner Day. Now, many of you may not know who Lysander Spooner is. Here's a really quick lesson in the greatness that is Lysander Spooner. Lysander Spooner was a 19th century abolitionist, attorney, and writer. He really was a libertarian in the modern definition of the word before we had libertarians. Now, we had people back then that maybe thought similar to him, but nobody was coining the term libertarian, and including Lysander. He wasn't calling himself a libertarian as far as I know. But if you look at his writings, you kind of see all of the same stuff that influences modern libertarianism today. The big things that you should know about Lysander Spooner are as follows. He started his own post office. He did not like that the United States post office was so slow and inefficient. At least he felt that they were slow and inefficient. So he started his own letter carrying service, which he was then taken to court and threatened with legal action and all sorts of other stuff from the US government because they claimed he wasn't allowed to do that. So he always harbored a grudge towards the government because of this. He was somebody who was vehemently against slavery because he existed during a time when slavery was a thing in our country. And so that's not really controversial to say now. At the time it was, and more importantly, he was even controversial among abolitionists because he felt, through his own interpretation of the Constitution, which he called original meaning, we'll talk about that in a second, he felt that slavery wasn't authorized by the Constitution. In getting to original meaning, which was Lysander Spooner's kind of own invention about how we should interpret the Constitution of the United States, he basically said you should take the meaning of the word in the document as it was understood at the time it was written. But everybody else wanted to take the intent of the phrases, meaning you need to look through all the ratifying conventions and all this other, nerdy stuff to really understand the Constitution. And Lysander said, no, the document should stand on its own. We shouldn't need all that other stuff. You should be able just to read something and say, okay, this is what it meant then, this is what it means now, as opposed to saying, okay, this is what we think it means, let's read the Virginia Ratifying Convention or let's read the Connecticut Ratifying Convention to kind of figure out what people thought it meant at the time. No, we just take the meaning. Take the meaning, and that's it. Additionally, he felt like if you read the Constitution and there are two potential interpretations of a certain phrase or clause, we should always choose the one that gives people the most freedom. So in that theory, he concluded that since slavery was not mentioned in the Constitution at all, there were allusions to it, but there was no outright mention of slavery. Slavery was then not legalized by the Constitution because natural law would dictate you can't own another person, specifically against their own will. He was a radical abolitionist at the time, and his view on slavery and abolition even kind of flew in the faces of the more popular abolitionists of the day who considered, the Constitution a pact with the devil, and where Lysander said, no, the Constitution doesn't allow it. We're doing something that shouldn't be done at all, and there's no legal precedent for it in the Constitution because that's where American law begins. Frederick Douglass, who was a very famous writer and former slave, turned intellectual, eventually ascribed to Lysander Spooner's way of interpreting the Constitution. So I think, that gives it some weight. He wrote an essay called Vices Aren't Crimes, which kind of is what it says it is. Like, we have things that maybe we look at socially as bad, but that doesn't necessarily mean they should be crimes. If they're not hurting anybody, then, why are we putting people in jail for it? Just because you smoke a plant or put something in your body, I may think that's dumb, ridiculous, harmful, stupid, and as a friend, if you're doing it, I may try and stop you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you deserve to sit in a cage for years on end. So on Lysander Spooner Day, you should maybe check out some of his works. He did No Treason, The Constitution of No Authority. He did The Unconstitutionality of Slavery. And then, as I mentioned earlier, he did Vices Are Not Crimes. So those are all very good literary works that you can read, and you can find them on the internet probably for free I think they're public domain at this point because he was alive during the 19th century. So anybody can read them. Doesn't cost you any money, and you can get some more freedom in your brain.